He got down on one knee while I was holding his coat. Inside the pocket was proof that the promise was already broken. The moment should have felt like magic. Sparkling lights, clinking glasses, a ring in a velvet box. Our closest friends circled, us in that overpriced rooftop bar, cheering, gasping. Ethan knelt like a scene from a movie, eyes shining, and asked me to marry him. My heart caught in my throat. Everyone clapped. Heather cried. Tessa hugged me too tightly. Ethan kissed my hand as if sealing a fairy tale. And I smiled. Because that's what you do when someone asks you to spend your life with them in public. You say yes, even if something inside you whispers, wait. It was cold that night. Ethan had handed me his coat right before the proposal, rushing to the bartender. "Hold this for a sec," he said. I remember how heavy it felt, like it knew something I didn't. I held it while he bent down, while he smiled, while I said yes. Hours later, after the champagne and selfies, I was alone in our apartment, still wearing the dress he loved. His coat was draped over the chair. I went to hang it up. That's when it slipped, something small, glossy, tucked deep in the inside pocket. It was a receipt, a folded square from a boutique jeweler downtown. Date, 2 days ago. Item, gold bracelet, engraved. Name, Tessa, not Naomi. Tessa. I read it twice, 3 times. My hands started to sweat. My pulse vanished. My body sat down before my brain did. The ring on my finger suddenly felt tight. I pulled it off and placed it on the table like it was burning. Tessa. The same Tessa who toasted us, who fixed my lipstick before the proposal, who said, "You're so lucky. He's a dream." She knew. She had to know. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stared at that paper like it had pulled back a curtain, like it whispered the part of the story he didn't want me to see. He'd proposed to me while hiding a gift for someone else, a woman I had trusted, a friend. The silence in the apartment was heavy. I could hear my own heartbeat, slower now, deeper, the kind of beat that comes right before everything inside you changes. This wasn't heartbreak. It was the start of something else, something colder, sharper. Ethan came home humming, like he hadn't detonated a landmine in the middle of my life. "You left your ring on the table," he said, confused. I turned slowly, holding the receipt between 2 fingers. "Did you forget something else too?" His smile faltered. "What's that?" I said nothing, just handed it to him. He stared at it like it might bite. It's not what you think." But that was a lie, because it was exactly what I thought. "I didn't want you to find it," he said. Wrong again. He didn't want me to find out, but I did. And now the entire proposal, every word, every gaze, every staged romantic gesture, was poison. I didn't throw the receipt. I didn't scream. I just smiled, because he had no idea. He didn't know that I'd already started rewriting the ending, that this fairy tale was about to become a very public tragedy. I walked to the bedroom, took off the dress, folded it slowly, hung it next to the coat, the same coat that carried the truth. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew one thing: the engagement was over, the performance wasn't. We met at a bookstore. I was thumbing through a battered copy of Sylvia Plath, and he asked if I was one of those tragic poetry types. I laughed, rolled my eyes, and somehow that turned into coffee, then dinner, then waking up next to each other like it had always been this way. Ethan had a way of making you feel chosen. He'd remember details, my favorite pastry, the exact quote I underlined in a novel, the way I took my tea. It felt intentional, romantic. I mistook attention for depth, But I didn't know that yet. Our first year was full of laughter. Lazy, Sundays, shared playlists, spontaneous road trips. He took pictures of me when I wasn't looking, said he wanted to capture the real. I thought that meant love. Now I know it meant documentation, for a version of me he could perform. He met my family after 6 months. My mother adored him, said he had a strong presence. My dad called him polished, and that was Ethan. Polished. Smooth. But when it was just us, he was softer. Or maybe I imagined that part. Maybe I needed him to be soft. We moved in together just before our 2nd anniversary. A little loft downtown, all exposed brick and unspoken promises. We split chores, playlists, bills. It felt like partnership. Real. But even then, I was the one doing the emotional heavy lifting. I just called it being understanding. Tessa came into the picture through Heather. Game nights, rooftop drinks, group trips. She was easy too, a little too easy. Ethan said she reminded him of me, but more spontaneous. I laughed when he said that. I shouldn't have. There were moments even back then when I felt off, like walking into a room where someone had just been talking about you. Tessa's glances. Ethan's shifts in tone when she entered the space. The way she always seemed just a little too familiar with him. Heather once asked if I ever got jealous. "You're so calm," she said. I'd be spiraling. I told her I trusted Ethan. And I did. Because trust is the last thing you give up when you've built your identity around being the lucky one. We took vacations, built a life. He'd leave love notes in my bag, post photos of us with captions like, "Forever looks good on us." People envied us, said we were couple goals. I fed on those compliments. They made me feel safe. He talked about marriage in vague terms. Someday, when the time is right. I never pushed. I didn't want to pressure him. I wanted the story to unfold naturally. I didn't realize he was scripting a different story behind my back. When he finally proposed, it felt overdue but perfect. The ring was vintage, just like I'd always dreamed. The speech, poetic, practiced, performed. I cried because I thought it was real, because everyone around us believed it was. In the days before the proposal, he was nervous, distant. I thought he was planning something special. He was, just not only for me. That weekend, he disappeared for a few hours. "Errands," he said. Turns out, he was buying Tessa a bracelet. The proposal became our new chapter. A symbol. A promise. I posted the video, got thousands of likes, but every time I replayed it, something in my chest clenched, like I was watching someone else live my life, because deep down, something already knew. And it was only a matter of time before I'd have the proof. After the proposal, something shifted. Not in the way you'd expect. I thought we'd be closer, more connected. But Ethan seemed distracted, distant. He checked his phone more, smiled less. I chalked it up to stress. Maybe the wedding planning. Maybe work. He started guarding his phone like it was gold-plated, taking it to the bathroom, turning the screen away when it lit up. I asked once, casually, "Everything okay?" He kissed my forehead. Of course. Just a lot going on. But the answer was too smooth, too quick. Then came the late nights. Drinks with a client. Running numbers with Paul. But Paul's girlfriend was a friend of mine, and she mentioned how Paul's been home by 7 every night. I didn't say anything. I just filed it away. Tessa started texting more. Harmless stuff, memes, inside jokes. Ethan and I laughed about this today. I laughed too, out loud. But my gut didn't. It twisted. Because if you have to joke with my fiancé about something you can't share with me, it's not harmless. One night, I walked into the kitchen and heard Ethan hang up fast. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just work." But his tone was off. Too flat. Too rehearsed. And his jaw flexed when he lied. I knew that jaw. I'd kissed that jaw. I'd loved that jaw. But now, it betrayed him. Heather mentioned something in passing. "Tessa's been spending a lot of time with Ethan lately, huh?" I smiled, shrugged. "Yeah, they get along." But her eyes said more. She knew, or suspected. And she was watching me swallow it. He stopped saying, "I love you," first. Always waited for me to say it. And when I did, sometimes he just smiled. No words, just a nod or a peck on the cheek. Like my affection was routine, background noise, something to mute when necessary. One day I went to surprise him at work, just lunch, nothing dramatic. But his assistant looked surprised, confused, even. "I thought he was out with Tessa," she said before catching herself. I smiled. Right, forgot. And I walked out like it didn't matter. That night, I didn't ask. I needed more. Something undeniable. I wasn't ready for the confrontation yet. I was still in the in-between, the space where your heart knows, but your mind begs for one more breadcrumb of denial. I started opening drawers, checking coat pockets. Not obsessively. Just curious. Detached. Like a detective who doesn't want to find anything but knows she will. That's when I saw the lipstick stain on a napkin in his jacket. Not my shade. Not my brand. The night before the proposal, he went off the grid. Said his phone died. That he needed to disconnect before the big moment. But his bank statement said otherwise. 2 charges. A florist. A boutique jewelry store. Only 1 bouquet arrived at our apartment. He told me he was planning something we'd never forget, and he was right. I'll never forget what it feels like to say yes while holding proof that the question was a lie. I didn't confront him yet. I wasn't done collecting. I needed the full truth. Not for him, to convince me, but for me, to destroy every excuse. I still whispered in the dark, because now I didn't just suspect betrayal. I could feel it breathing between us. The bracelet receipt didn't scream. It whispered, quiet and cold, like a secret finally stepping into the light. It was still crisp, no creases, no smudges, like it had been waiting to be found, like it wanted me to know. I reread it 12 times. Tessa's name engraved in gold. A message too long for friendship, too intimate for casual. You make me reckless. My breath caught. My pulse slowed. I was numb. Not in denial. Just suspended. I sat on the bed with the receipt in, one hand in my engagement ring in the other, a sick kind of symmetry. One symbolized a promise, the other, proof it was broken. I stared at both and realized I didn't know which felt more like a lie. He came home late again, smiling, buzzed, kissed my cheek like nothing had shifted. "You looked beautiful today," he said. My stomach turned. I watched him undress. Hang up the coat. The same coat that carried the receipt like a weapon I wasn't supposed to find. At dinner the next night, surrounded by the same friends who cheered our engagement, I watched him pour Tessa wine. Their glances were quick, but not invisible. Heather noticed. She glanced at me, then down. She knew. She'd known for a while. Tessa laughed too hard at his joke. Her hand brushed his. It looked like nothing, like a mistake. But it wasn't. It was a language I finally understood. The kind spoken in shared secrets and silent betrayals. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. My hands trembled as I opened my phone. I pulled up the receipt photo. I zoomed in on the date, on the engraving, on the signature. Then I opened our engagement video. The ring, the cheers, the kiss. I watched myself say yes. I watched myself smile, and I wanted to reach into the screen and shake her. He bought her a bracelet the same week he asked you to marry him. I came back to the table. Sat down slowly. Tessa raised her glass. To love, she said. I raised mine too. And to honesty, I added, watching Ethan flinch. A flicker. Small, but undeniable. That night, in bed, I stared at the ceiling while he slept beside me. I could hear his breathing. Slow. Steady. The breathing of a man who thought he got away with it. Who believed I was still fooled. Still his. I wasn't crying anymore. I was calculating. Because this wasn't heartbreak. It was awakening. And the next time I looked at him, I wouldn't be wondering. I'd be deciding. I stayed in bed the next morning. Not because I was tired, but because moving meant acknowledging it was real. The receipt, the lies, the woman, the proposal. Every word of affection was suddenly dust in my mouth. Ethan left for work without noticing I hadn't spoken. Didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't see the ring sitting on the windowsill, quietly removed. He just grabbed his coffee, kissed the air beside my cheek, and walked out like everything was still intact. I waited until the door clicked shut. Then, I screamed. Not loudly, but deep. The kind of sound that stays in your throat because the pain is too dense to move. I pressed my fists against my eyes, like I could unsee the proof. I texted Heather. Just 2 words. You knew. Her reply was fast. I wasn't sure. A lie. You don't flinch at a dinner table for not sure. You don't look away when people toast to love unless your guilt is heavier than your wine glass. I couldn't eat, couldn't shower. I paced. I dug through his drawers like a woman possessed. Found more receipts. A hotel key card. A parking stub from a jazz lounge we'd never gone to. But I remembered Tessa raving about it. I printed everything. Laid it out like evidence in a trial I never asked to attend. Each item screamed the same thing. You were never crazy. You were never paranoid. You were right. The grief came next. Quiet. Numb. I curled into a ball on the kitchen floor and sobbed until my stomach hurt. I had loved him. Not perfectly, but completely. And he had used that love like a credit card, maxed it out, left me with the debt. Then came the anger. It didn't explode. It simmered. I thought of every time I apologized for needing reassurance. Every time he made me feel too emotional or too much. And all along, he was cheating in plain sight. I looked at our wedding Pinterest board, deleted it. I opened the RSVP draft email, deleted that too. I stared at the engagement photos, folder, moved it to trash. And when the pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes without hesitation. That night, he came home humming again, always humming. Like the soundtrack of someone completely unaware of the damage trailing behind him. Want tie tonight? He asked. I looked at him. No, I said. I want the truth. He blinked. What? I pulled out the receipt, dropped it on the table, watched him read it, watched his mouth open, then close. It's not. I stopped him. If you lie again, I swear I'll scream so loud the neighbors will think, "You're dying." He sat down. Quiet. It was a mistake, he said. I laughed. Loud. Ugly. Mistakes don't come with engraving fees. And I walked out. Because in that moment, I realized he left me, but he didn't break me. I didn't want just closure. I wanted confirmation. So I went digging. Not in anger, but in clarity. I wanted to see it all. Not just what Ethan did, but how deep it went. How many lies had I called love? The emails were easy. He never changed. His passwords. I logged in one morning with shaking hands and coffee gone cold. Within minutes, there it was. A reservation for 2. Spa, rooftop dinner, bracelet pickup. All dated the same week as our proposal. I scrolled further. Love notes. From him. To her. The same words he'd once used on me. I've never felt more seen. You bring me peace. You're everything she used to be. That one made my breath leave the room. I copied them. Saved them in a folder labeled Truth. I wasn't sure if I'd ever confront him again, but I needed this. For the day I stopped gaslighting myself. Because that's what they don't tell you about manipulation. It teaches you to mistrust your own memory. Tessa had written back. Sweet messages, compliments, screenshots of Pinterest boards, wedding jokes. Imagine if she found out. That line. It echoed, bounced off every wall inside me. She knew. She didn't care. She wanted the wreckage. I checked my voicemail. One from Heather. I didn't know what to say. I was afraid. I didn't want to lose you. I saved it too, because silence in the face of betrayal is just another betrayal. And she'd chosen him over the truth. Then I found the ring receipt. Bought the same day as the bracelet. The same damn day. He had walked into one store, bought a future with me, then walked next door and bought a lie with her. 2 women. 1 man. 1 illusion. I reached out to the jeweler. Asked about the bracelet. Oh yes, very specific inscription, the woman said cheerfully. He seemed nervous. Wanted it just right. I thanked her. Hung up. My hands were shaking again, but not from grief. From power. I wrote it all down. Timeline, proof, receipts, messages. Compiled everything into one PDF file. Titled it Proposal and Deceit. I sent a copy to myself. Another to a trusted friend. I wasn't scared of losing him anymore. I was scared of losing myself again. Then, something small, yet seismic. I found a group photo from the night of the proposal. We're smiling. Tessa's arm around him, her hand tucked too close, Heather looking down. I stared at the image for 10 minutes. It wasn't a picture. It was a confession. I remembered the ring box, still in my drawer. I opened it. Empty now. But it felt symbolic. I placed the receipt inside, closed the lid. That box had carried his promise. Now it carried his truth. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was certain. And certainty is what women like me use to set fires. I didn't scream. I didn't throw his clothes out the window. I chose a quieter weapon. Truth. Polished. Organized. Lethal. The kind of truth that ends stories like his, not with drama, but with documentation. Our engagement party was already planned. A rooftop lounge. Cocktails. Canapes, curated playlists. I kept the date, kept the guest list, kept smiling, because sometimes revenge looks like grace, until it doesn't. I arrived early, wore white, not for purity, but irony. Heather looked nervous. She knew. I hugged her anyway, because I'd already decided who deserved my wrath, and who deserved to watch it. Ethan arrived fashionably late. Kissed my cheek. You look unreal, he whispered. I smiled. You have no idea. I waited until the 3rd toast, everyone a little buzzed, Tessa laughing too loudly. That's when I stood up. Before we raise our glasses, I said, I want to share a little timeline of our love story. He froze. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. Behind me, a projector lit up. Proposal and deceit.pdf. The first slide? The bracelet receipt, engraved, time-stamped, dated. Gasps rippled. Tessa dropped her glass. Heather covered her mouth. Ethan stood, tried to reach me. Naomi, don't. I kept talking. Slide 2. The texts. Romantic, repetitive, identical to the ones he'd sent me years ago. You're everything she used to be. The crowd turned. Eyes narrowed. A friend whispered, Is this real? I nodded. It's all real. Slide 3. The group photo. Tessa's hand on him. Heather's downcast eyes. I zoomed in. Look closely, I said. They all knew. I was the only one clapping for a performance that ended long before he got down on one knee. Ethan stepped forward. We can talk. I held up a hand. You've talked enough. Now it's my turn. I opened the ring box, took out the receipt, placed it inside, closed it, walked to him, and handed it back. For your next proposal, I said, maybe pick a day you don't already belong to someone else. He looked shattered, but not out of guilt, out of exposure. And that's what cut deepest. I turned to leave. The room was silent. No clapping this time. Just truth hanging in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. He had lost everything that made him untouchable. Tessa followed me outside. You didn't have to do it like that, she hissed. I turned. Calm. Cold. No, I said. I got to. And I walked away before she could reply. Let her live in the ashes of the spotlight she thought she wanted. Heather texted later. One line. I should have told you. I didn't reply. She wasn't the villain, but she wasn't innocent either. In betrayal, silence is complicity, and I was done with both. Ethan tried once more. A voicemail. Rambling. Defensive. Let's fix this. I deleted it before it finished. Some things aren't broken. They're exposed. He thought I wouldn't find out. I did. And I made sure everyone else did too. My apartment is smaller now. Sunlight floods the kitchen in the mornings. The walls are quiet. Not silent with tension. Peaceful. Honest. I don't wake up anxious anymore. I don't reach for my phone, waiting for the lie. The ring is gone. I pawned it the week after the party. Used the money to take myself to the mountains. Just me. A cabin. Books. Wind. I watched the sun rise without a hand to hold, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I don't check his socials. I don't Google Tessa. That story isn't mine anymore. Whatever wreckage they made of each other, I don't need to watch it burn. I already walked through the fire and made it out the other side. Heather tried to reach out, said she misses me. I missed the version of her that had my back. But that girl disappeared the moment she chose comfort over truth. I don't hate her. I just don't need her anymore. I still have the coat. His coat. I thought about throwing it away. Instead, I hung it in the back of the closet. A reminder, not of pain, but of instinct. That gut feeling I ignored too long. The coat told the truth before anyone else did. My mornings are simple now. Coffee, music, no performance. I laugh louder, cry freely. I don't explain myself. I don't ask for space. I take it. Because I'm no longer waiting for someone to choose me. I choose me. I tell my story, not for pity, but for power. Other women write to me now. I saw myself in your words. I needed to hear that it's okay to walk away. I tell them, don't wait for the receipt. Trust the shift. The proposal video, deleted. But I kept one frame, my face, just before he knelt. Before I knew. Before I smiled for a lie. I look at that girl sometimes. She deserved better. And now, she finally has it. The ring box sits on my bookshelf. Not as a memory. As a warning. Still holding the receipt. Still closed. Because it was never about the jewelry. It was about the proof. And the proof set me free. He left me with questions. But I gave myself answers. I didn't get closure. I got freedom. And I became his biggest regret.